We should probably get the microphone. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is HBR News. What was our? I forgot the intro, but that I used to do for this. That I do for this. This is HBR News number 519. Suis, Charlie, from Calgary, Alberta. So this is a special news show because we are live in front of an actual audience of our listeners and contributors.
There's
and
hundreds of them.
Yeah, you have no idea. Huge show, very big, the biggest crowds. No, but we are doing a special show, and I have my lovely co-hosts Hannah and Dr. Randercam as always, and we're going to be looking at the week's stories here from Calgary, Alberta, from the Badger meetup. So hopefully, you guys that are watching are happy to see. I see some people in the chat. Hello, everyone. This is going to be a little bit more informal. Not that the news show is formal. We have cartoons on screen, for God's sakes. And we get called furries by the vertical chat, which we are not.
They ruined a lot of things, man.
They did. They ruined cartoons.
We just like animals. We think they're cool.
Yeah, that's it, right? So, anyway, we have a lot to get to today, so we're going to try to keep it as light as we can be. With regards to recent events, and I may open the floor to any of you guys if you wanted to say anything about the stories. We try to take what's happening in the news, address it as Badgers. So we're looking at it from our particular unique perspective and trying to maybe add an angle to it that other people had not considered when discussing these things. So. Or sometimes the jokes tell themselves. Not this one, though. So let us now get into today's stories. Let me switch. So you probably heard something happened recently. On September 10th, 2025, Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old influential conservative activist and close ally of President Donald Trump, was fatally shot during a public speaking event at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. The incident occurred around 12:20 p.m. as Kirk, known for his prove me wrong debate style and leadership of Turning Point USA, was answering a question about transgender mass shooters in front of approximately 3,000 attendees, which is still smaller than this crowd, by the way. The shooter, identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, fired a single bullet from a rooftop, striking Kirk in the neck, an act captured on security cameras showing the suspect climbing stairwells and fleeing the scene. The killing, which Trump labeled a heinous assassination, took place amid a surge in U.S. political violence, with over 150 politically motivated attacks reported in the first half of 2025, marking a significant escalation since the January 6, 2021 Capitol incident. Following the assassination, authorities quickly released images and video of a person of interest, later confirmed as Robinson, wearing a distinctive black top with an American flag and eagle design, black sunglasses, and Converse shoes. A rifle believed to be the murder weapon was recovered, and a $100,000 FBI reward led to Robinson's arrest on September 12, 2025, that would be today, as confirmed by Utah Governor Spencer Cox and Trump. Investigators noted that Robinson's family reported his expressed animosity towards Kirk, citing the activist's perceived hate as a motive. The event drew widespread condemnation from figures across the political spectrum, including former President George W. Bush and Joe Biden, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, and even liberal commentator Dean Withers, highlighting concerns about escalating political violence and its impact on free speech, especially given Kirk's role as a father of two and a key figure in mobilizing young conservative voters. So, there's more I could say about this. I've said a lot in since it's happened, and it's been on my mind. I had trouble sleeping for a couple of nights after this happened. But I'm going to let Mike or Hannah take say a few words about the story if you guys want. So which one of you guys wants to go first?
Go ahead.
Give me that.
All right, here you go.
I'm not going to talk about the shooter or any of the conjectures still being made about Zim, because it's not the point. It seems almost counterintuitive that this has put the shits up people far more than the Trump assassination attempt, the first one, I mean. There was certainly a lot more on the line when Trump almost died, but that's the point, he didn't die. If he did, there would have been the boogaloo to end all boogaloos. There probably would have been rioting in the streets and a bunch of mostly peaceful arson attacks and whatnot. There might even have been that civil war thing that we've all been warned about for a long time. But we're not in that timeline. We're in a timeline 1 inch to the right of that timeline where Trump got shot but didn't die. And in the aftermath, all we had to witness online was a load of nasty bastards lamenting that their favorite boogeyman didn't die and ghoulishly praying that he does. It's a whole different kettle of fish when not only does a man actually die in such a harrowing way, but we watched it happen. We saw it close up. For all the pretend violence we see in movies and TV, it's not every day we watch a real person get murdered in real time. It's extremely rare, actually, that we're ever presented with that kind of footage. And now we know why. It genuinely chills you to the bone to see that happen. You sort of stop breathing for a few seconds and your eyeballs sort of bulge out and sort of freeze in place and your stomach feels weird. You can't even cry because it happens so fast and it's just too much to take in, so you just sort of short circuit. Call me a pussy if you like for having that kind of emotional reaction. That's fine. I will go ahead and call you a demon for not having it. Because that's the other thing. It's not necessarily the murder itself that's made us so angry. The death was sad and tragic. What made us angry is the idea that someone, anyone, can watch that footage and feel delight. A lot of them did watch the footage. They didn't just hear about it. They watched it happen. And then they smiled and they laughed and they danced in the aisles like underworked nurses dicking around while people are getting their lungs blown out in the next room. There are some, dark thoughts that I can understand if I use my imagination. Like how you can secretly hope that bad things happen to someone or even wish that they would die. Like in a moment of rage and vengeance when you sort of lose yourself. But in no nightmare recess of my mind can I countenance how anyone can actually watch a defenseless man get murdered in cold blood and then celebrate it. Even if it's someone you hate. Even if it's like Osama bin Laden or something. Even if you believe he really was responsible for 3,000 deaths. You'd be okay with him being assassinated and you'd be okay with just knowing he's dead. You'd be okay with taking someone's word for it. But you wouldn't want to watch it actually happening. Charlie Kirk didn't kill anyone. He didn't even hurt anyone. He just had opinions and expressed them. But people watched the life leave his body and they rejoiced. It just doesn't make sense. It can't make sense. I can't understand how any human mind can work like that. And if it ever does, I would only expect it from serial killers, cannibals, amateur torturers, that sort of thing. They're kind of 1 in a million person who belongs in solitary confinement for the rest of their lives, being stared at through a tiny window by criminal psychology professors with clipboards. So what's really put the shits up us is discovering that we are, in fact, surrounded by people whose brains work like that. They're in every city, they're in every town, probably in every street, and certainly in every college. They probably outnumber us in most colleges. So it's not just mental illness. It's not even mental illness. Mental illness of that magnitude is rare, vanishingly rare. What we're dealing with is evil. There's no other way to describe it. They're not just NPCs, they are demons. They are barons of hell. They don't have a mentally ill conscience. They simply don't have a conscience. It's been taken from them. Their souls have been sucked out from an early age and now there's nothing left. They weren't born demons. They became demons. A lot of us have landed on this same terminology, like independently from each other. Whatever religious or spiritual beliefs we may have or not have, we've concluded that these are demons. We're not talking about a hell that you go to after you die. We're talking about hell on earth. It's real, and we're watching it happen. We're talking about demons on earth. They are real, and we can hear them cackling in the fires all around us. And they're proud of it, by the way. They're not just remorseless. They're not just unashamed. They are proud. They're patting each other on the back and sucking each other's scaly demon appendages for upholding what they consider to be virtues. You'd think some kind of glimmer of humanity would flash past them at some point and give them a moment's pause. Maybe we should tone down our rhetoric just a smidgen. No, it's the murder victims who are wrong. These people are psychotic. And we live in a psychocracy. We are ruled over by people who can only find happiness in cruelty and slaughter and death. They have no brakes on this train, and they have no reverse gear. There's no compromising. There's no diplomacy. There's no peaceful revolution. There is only war. And no, that does not mean I'm glorifying killing. That is what you people are doing, literally and to the letter. You know, just for argument's sake, I want to be able to say, imagine if milquetoast lefty commentator was murdered just for speaking, but no matter which milquetoast lefty commentator I name, you broken bastards would chant, "You're inciting murder against milquetoast lefty commentators," while you literally incite murder against milquetoast righty commentators. At long last have you no shame. Stupidest question I've ever asked. No, yeah, by war, I mean culture war, that thing. I mean cancellation war. We've been taking the high road for the last dozen years and more in the hopes that you people would follow our example and stop persecuting people for their opinions. But you've only gotten worse. And now you're flagrantly at the point where you're proudly declaring that we deserve to be murdered for expressing our opinions. And now we've finally reached the point where we think you deserve to be fired for expressing opinions like that. And we're the hypocrites, are we? Bro, we're just 10 years behind you. We've finally reached the conclusion that we can't just play defensively anymore. And our only option is to fight back with the very weapons you've chosen for this duel. We're done reasoning. We're done debating. We're done praying. Praying is all well and good when you feel like it's all you can do, but it's not. So we're getting off our knees and we're standing up. We're parting our hands and we're clenching our fists. If God let this happen, then God wants war. So we're declaring it. So yeah, it's not about Charlie. For the first few minutes, it was about Charlie. For the first few hours, it was about Charlie, because Charlie was killed by a zombie. But then the rest of the zombies burst out of the monster closet yelling, "You will be killed by demons." We palsmed at them, but it was too late. "No, John, you are the demons," and then John was a zombie. I'm ending on some levity with a dank meme from ages ago, but seriously, folks, rip and tear and so on. You are in hell. Act like it.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, Hannah, go ahead.
Another term for holding people to their own standards, even if you don't like their standards, is malicious compliance. It is a highly effective tactic, and we should not shy away from it. But that's not really what I was going to talk about. One of the things that struck me about this is that in some ways, Charlie Kirk is like a Jordan Peterson of America, of the United States, in that he engaged quite a bit with young men on university campuses with signs of strength, having strength in his convictions, and having confidence in his convictions, and still being willing to listen to the other side, to debate, having the maturity to consider other people's ideas, and then explain when, his conclusion is, no, that's wrong, in a manner that was civil and kind and considerate, and in very often in caring terms. Not, I hate you because you're different or because you're wrong, but I want you to be right because it will be better for you. Not even because it would be better for me, but because it would be better for you. Your life will be easier if you're right about this. And if you take the wrong path, your life will be harder. And I really think that that was why he was targeted. I don't think it was the trans issue as in, oh, he's transphobic. I don't think it was, oh, he's racist. I think it was, oh, he's giving young men a pathway to strength in their own convictions, to rational thinking instead of emotional outbursts, and to creating their own boundaries when it comes to how they're going to progress in life, how they're going to orient themselves, and then how they're going to move forward from where they started through the direction that they've oriented themselves to. And that terrifies people who exploit instability and lack of boundaries and lack of guidance. It terrifies them that they won't have that generation of young men to manipulate. You can't manipulate people if they know themselves and they know their values and they know their interests, their goals, their needs, and their impact. You can only manipulate people if you can confuse them and scare them and emotionally cripple them. And that made him the most dangerous man in America. And for that, he took a bullet in the neck. And to me, the people that are focusing on whether or not we are being as mean to the people who are celebrating his shooting as they are to us are dramatically missing the point. This was an attack on manhood and masculinity, on men's ability to be themselves in the way that best serves their needs and their interests, including their interest in serving other people, rather than being little cogs in a machine that was created to destroy them. And it really doesn't matter if we're being hypocritical when we hold our opponents to their own rules. It matters whether or not we lose. Because if we lose, manhood will never get an opportunity to come back. It'll be gone forever. So, be a hypocrite. Engage in malicious compliance. Their rules apply to them. Be the instrument of that application. It is one of the only things that we can do to put the kibosh to this kind of behavior. And when it comes to how the situation is going to be handled, what's going to happen to the young man who shot him, I understand all the cries for blood. I understand all the cries for public execution. The rage behind those is fair. I have it myself. But I would ask people to consider if Charlie Kirk had gotten a chance to speak to that man, he'd have reached out to him. And if he was to watch what's happening now, I think he would be sad. Because it's not the way that he dealt with hateful people. He wasn't, angry and enraged and vengeful. He reached out, he tried to change minds, he did what he could, and then he moved on if he couldn't. And I think the way that the rest of us can approach that, it's a tragedy that the very age of young man that he was trying to save ended up being the person that killed him. And every element of what's going to happen now is just sad. And that's really all that we need to react to. And when you're dealing with the anger at what happened and what's being done, what's being said, honestly, the best way to handle that is to get a grip on it, recognize it, and then focus it as a form of energy and use it to fuel your arguments in defense of masculinity and in defense of masculine signs of strength and maturity and growth, and not in defense of returning to barbaric practices that we've abandoned in the past. And I guess that's all I've got to say about this.
All right, thanks, Hannah. So, obviously Charlie Kirk's not a men's rights activist, okay? But I guarantee that if I had a chance to talk to him, he would have been open to what I had to say, because I think that his political journey, which I did not watch super close because I wasn't I don't know, I just didn't follow him super close. I was a little bit consumed with other things, but I was aware that he was out there doing stuff, campaigning and such. And I saw him on an episode of Tucker Carlson's podcast after Tucker was fired from Fox News and went independent and started doing his own thing. And it was about 2.5 hours long, and they spent probably 75% of it talking about young men. And that was Charlie Kirk's primary concern. And it wasn't in the context of, that they have to take responsibility or they have to put down the video games and the weed. It wasn't what you would normally conceive of when you think of what a, conservative commentator would say. It was real things. It was like, look, young men they're not getting, the opportunities they're supposed to get. And he didn't specify white men, but he did say a couple times, in particular, white men. But it was just across the board men. All of their issues, they're not, women don't want to marry them. They can't find anybody. They're not getting job opportunities. They can't afford, simple things like previous generations were able to, like a home and all of a living wage, etc. And that he said that this is going to be a problem if we can't address it. Like we have to because, why would men try for anything if everything is against them? So he was I think he was going on that path. I think that if you're approaching anything that involves wanting to make the world better, and you are trying to do so honestly, and you're just looking for what's true, you're going to land there. You're going to be oh, what's going on with men? It's going to become, because it's buried under so many other distractions. We're distracted by economics and trade and immigration and race and sexuality and all of these other things. And at the end of the day, a lot of that stuff gets stripped away, and all that you have left is men and women. If everything collapsed tomorrow, there'd be men and there'd be women, and they had to figure out how to work together. But they can't do that if women have been taught to hate them and men have been taught to fear them, fear women, that is, right? So he was starting to do that. And I think that it could have gone somewhere. And I'm still optimistic that whoever picks up the torch will start to go that way. And it's not going to be one person. I think that when he died, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to ask you guys in the audience and those of you who are here, if you refer to what happened to Charlie Kirk, that you refer to it as an assassination every single time, and not he died, because that sounds like he slipped in the bathtub. No, someone went out of their way, they plotted and planned, and they murdered him, right? I don't care what it was for. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of theories. I don't care about that right now, but that is what happened, okay? And the language war is really important. People using the right words to describe what happened matters a lot. So, and if we're going to get people to change their mind about things, we have to use the right words. So, assassinated. And I'm sorry, I'm still really heated about this whole thing, because, what we do here at HBR involves the same thing. We're going to public places, and we're trying to, whether that is a public square online or we're going out and talking to people like we're doing today. And it is still what I think is the most, the best way to get the word out is to talk to people. And I knew for the longest time that the people we're up against don't want us to talk. They have done everything they could to silence us for years and years and years. And censorship is basically dress rehearsal for murder. It is practicing murdering you without actually having to take on that, the burden of actually taking a life. But if they can just silence you or pretend like you don't exist or ridicule you, to make you irrelevant or discredit you or ruin your life, they'll do that. They'll do all of that, and then if none of that works, then you're gone, right? Charlie Kirk was experiencing censorship early on. He was banned from colleges, from going there. So he decided, I'm going to start my own organization. I'm going to do it myself. And then he would just go to these public spaces and do these things. And he built his whole Turning Point thing from the ground up because he was getting censored. And that whole time he was being slandered, just like we are, just like anybody these people oppose. They get slandered and they get lied about, and they gaslight their followers into thinking that we are the worst possible humans imaginable. So to put it in the context, because we're talking about a right-wing American Republican political commentator that was murdered, assassinated. But let's put it in context and look at the history of the men's movement and what has happened to some people there that had to deal with this kind of resistance. Maybe it didn't get this far, but Erin Pitsey was driven out of the UK because she dared to say what? Oh, it turns out women can also be abusers. That was the only thing she was guilty of, was looking at the truth and stating it. They killed her dog and they drove her out of the UK, okay? Earl Silverman was pushed to suicide. I'm not saying that they made him do that, but he was in a state where there was nothing he can do. He was just blocked at every opportunity. He could not make it work because no one wanted to help him, right? Because he had the bad ideas, I guess. And he ended up taking his own life. He couldn't do it. Mark Angelucci was assassinated. And we still don't know everything there is to know about that. For people who are Gamergate people, Alec Holoka, who was accused of raping Zoe Quinn by Zoe Quinn with no evidence, and his own sister unpersoned him, and then he took his own life as well. Donald Trump was almost killed. Nick Fuentes, I mean, he's not an MRA, but we're looking at people, anyone who was against it. There was a guy at his door with a gun. We're not talking about people that just have a difference of opinion. I mean, they do, but it's more than that. They think that our opinions should not exist. They will take these measures to ensure that nobody gets to hear what we have to say. And it just so happens with Charlie Kirk, they managed to get to someone. And the one of the things they want to get out of that is that it makes everybody shut up because we don't want it to happen to us. And what I've noticed, do you remember Janet Bloomfield? She used to make content all the time, judgy bitch. That was anti-feminist content. And she stopped making content because her children were threatened. So she just had to back out, if you guys didn't know that. And that's why I don't know if you'll ever see her again, but plenty of people either quietly left the internet because things got too hot, or they were driven out, or they were killed themselves. So we're not dealing with people who actually want to have a dialogue. We're dealing with people that want to destroy us. And if you're feeling that anxiety, that's where that comes from, because a part of you in a primal way knows that you can't reason with these people. That's why I can't do the both sides thing. I just can't do it. And I think that we should be looking for ways to ally ourselves with anyone who isn't these demons. Even if we are not politically aligned or whatever, but if they believe in these principles of having conversations and pursuing truth and free speech, then we should be okay, you're with me now. We're going to work together, and we can work out our differences later, because right now we're up against a monster, and the monster doesn't care what side you're on. This guy was very moderate, and they still thought he has to die. So what are they going to think about you? I mean, what seriously, So I don't know that I don't know if I got everything out that I wanted to say, but the time for compromise with these people is done. You'll know based on how they reacted to what happened. So if they treat it lightly, if they laugh at it, if they celebrate it, or even if they do this whole thing of, well, I didn't like the guy, but shut up. You can't murder people and then try to find a way to, well, your murdering is always wrong. No, you were calling us Nazis for 10 years. And now that something has actually happened, you want to back out and say, look, man, I'm against that. No, you're not. Because you didn't stick up for us when we were wondering if we were gonna like be able to, do our work. So anyway, does anybody here want to say anything about this? I'll give you an opportunity. No? All right. Okay. Well, thanks for that. Let me see if I know that there are people in the chat. I got a super chow that I'm going to read out here. So Kanoko's evil twin gave us $50. Unfortunately, I can't display it for you guys. And he says, the assassination of Charlie Kirk is 100% in line with the Femocrat policy to destroy the nuclear family. Divorce is the usual method of eliminating fathers from families. On this occasion, a bullet was used instead. Charlie just wanted to build bridges. The takeaway lesson from his murder is that not only can you not build bridges with evil psychopaths, you cannot build civilization itself either. There is no middle ground for compromise with evil that will see you dead merely just because of the words that you say. The ice blow beckons for the hazardous hominid bio-waste that we must discard. The other thing too is that just as an aside for those of you guys who are watching in the live chat and you guys that are here, I want you to go on, if you've been on X/Twitter or any parts of social media and you've seen like the clips of people celebrating, how many of them are women? That's all I'm going to say about that. Like, what do you think the ratio of women to men is on the people doing this? That's all I'll say about that. So we're going to move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I look forward to your thoughts. So, all right, let me see here. Did I do that right? Yeah. So, all right. So this guy is, I think I got to get my write-up out here. Greg something.
Graham Linehan.
I can't say it. Greg Linham?
Graham Linehan.
Graham Linehan.
That's the one.
Why don't I have this up? Oh, it might be buried in my history. Well, okay. Let's try to like sum it up because you guys know what happened to him, right? So, Mike, do you remember what he said?
It was a series of transphobic tweets, and one of them was, "Hey, ladies, if men come into your bathroom, you should something punch them in the balls."
That's right.
So it's something like that. That's probably because it's incitement to violence against people that you're absolutely not allowed to incite violence against. And he said this in a tweet while he was in the USA, and he's an Irish citizen. But then he went through Heathrow Airport in London, and the British police arrested him. 5 of them at gunpoint. In case you Americans thought you were safe, tweeting in your own country. If you annoy the British police and you ever want to come to Britain, well, not a good advert for our beloved country, is it?
Yeah, so he was arrested for tweets in the UK. They might have their priorities a little bit mixed up, but I wanted to get, because one that's actually what's funny is that this guy also like stuck up for Charlie Kirk after his assassination, which is weird. I don't know if he's like on the road to being red pilled on some things, but if you guys don't know who this guy is, Greg Linham, Graham, whatever, Graham Linham, whatever. He was the writer and did he direct it or something? Show running?
No, he just wrote it.
He
occasionally appears in things. He's a bit part actor as well.
Oh, okay.
Funny guy.
He wrote IT Crowd and Father Ted, right? And I watched a lot of IT Crowd. Very funny show. But yeah, so I don't know. Like, I think you wanted to say something about in general, or did you just do
Yeah. To some degree, I do feel sorry for Graham. He's being made an example of by this cult of misandry that's determined to erase men from society and history. You'll notice J.K. Rowling has never been arrested, despite having the exact same opinions as Graham Linehan and having expressed those opinions with just as much vitriol online. And I don't want to reduce this to the label of simply turf, even though the shoe does fit. I think it's important to describe things and not just label them. Some feminists hate every man who doesn't disavow his masculinity. These are commonly called trans-inclusive. Whereas some feminists hate every man, even if he does disavow his masculinity. These are commonly called trans-exclusive. Two-tier justice still applies, of course. It's only the TERFs who get arrested, but like I said, they never arrested J.K. Rowling. It's not just two-tier, it's a pyramid with men at the bottom. It's why Graham Linehan got arrested, because he's the most prominent male TERF that the police could identify, at least when it comes to celebrity discourse in the UK. That's why I feel sorry for Graham, because he's the one being hoisted on this petard. But at the same time, it is his petard. He doesn't just hate men who transition, he hates men. But to be clear, he doesn't hate himself, he hates all men except himself. He thinks he's, as we were talking about earlier, the one good man. The one good man who has the unique emotional intelligence to prioritize women over men. And he doesn't seem to realize that the men who arrested him at gunpoint suffer from the exact same delusion. To quote Graham himself, "Men are vicious, men are aggressive, they communicate in an aggressive way, especially when they don't have any basis for any of these beliefs." And then he throws a shocked Pikachu face when other men apply this outlook to him. That's why they apprehended you at the airport, Graham, because they think you're vicious and aggressive and that you're communicating in an aggressive way because you don't have any basis for these beliefs. But I do have a basis for these beliefs. They don't agree, Graham. They don't care because you're a man. They just think you're a hateful criminal thug who wants to hurt people because you're a man. Why would you expect them to snap out of it when you won't snap out of it? You're in the same cult, the same mindless, misandric cult as the police force that is victimizing you. You can leave the UK, you can leave Ireland, you can leave Europe altogether and escape to the sanctity of the USA. But for some reason, you won't leave the cult that is victimizing you. You remain staunchly and unwaveringly devoted to the cult that is victimizing you, the cult that blames men for everything under the sun. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that cult is also ravaging its way through the USA. And it will continue to do so as long as you and your ilk are dragging it with you everywhere you go. You're like a Democrat who escapes the tyranny of a blue state only to land in a red state and continue to vote blue. And for that reason, Graham, I can only feel so sorry for you. My sympathy can only go so far. You didn't necessarily bring this on yourself to the extent that you expected, but if you're going to carry on bringing it onto everyone else around you, no matter where you go, then at some point I have to recommend that you go fuck yourself. Your ideological hatred of men is what got you into this mess, but only because you extended that hatred towards the only white men who we are not allowed to hate, the ones who have officially denounced their masculinity. Just stop hating men, Graham. Just stop it. Get some help. You can go somewhere where you won't get arrested for it, but it will continue to blacken your soul wherever you go, and it will tar the destinies of all the other men around you. Okay? Women are not the victims of everything. Gay people are not the victims of everything. Men, plain old normal boring men, can also be victims. And would you believe me if I told you that the men who feel the insatiable need to denounce their masculinity are themselves victims? Victims of who? Feminism, Graham. They are victims of feminism, and you are a feminist. Hence, they are victims of you, just like you are a victim of them. It's a vicious cycle and a hideous state of affairs, and all you have to do, all of you, is stop hating men. But you won't. None of you. You have no incentive to stop hating men, and you can't live without it. So yeah, in conclusion, fuck you all. I don't give a shit anymore. Go the fuck away. I don't want you in anyone's toilet. Go sit in a ditch and piss yourselves for all I care. Needless to say, I'm not a doctor. None of this is medical advice.
Here you go.
So I think a lot of the reason why men who try to navigate feminism end up in this situation is that they don't understand what feminism is. It is the combination of that female victim grift and a deep, undying hatred and fear of masculinity. And we always say feminism is hating men. It's masculinity that they hate. They hate the masculine level and style of accountability and how rewarding it is for the people that exhibit it. and how difficult it is to get what those people have without that degree of accountability. So if that was the base, the table is that hatred, that undying, seething, resentful, angry rage boiling up toward masculinity, combined with that female victim narrative, you then have, and these were not put here as a prop, but let's see if I can get a hold of them and put them where they can be seen. Yeah. So you have intersectional feminism, which worked its way through academia and did the long march through the institutions. So you have this in journalism prominently, you have this in business prominently, you have this in education prominently, it's in entertainment media prominently, it is everywhere. Anything that is part of the mechanisms of exercising social power in the world, intersectional feminism is there. And then you have gender feminism, radical feminism. It's all about masculinity versus femininity. The difference between these two is this side thinks you can't cure men of their masculinity, and this side thinks that you can, because they both treat it like a disease. And when feminism first became prevalent and prominent in the institutions, they were like this, right? So men could do this and get away with it. And obviously, as intersectional feminism began to travel and migrate farther and farther this way, which I'm not going to demonstrate because I don't want to break the glasses, even though that is the name of my blog. I don't want to break this type of glasses. That refers to this type of glasses. Eventually, they're too far apart for a man to straddle. And what happens is he falls into the gap in between and he gets crushed, or he gets impaled, or he gets broken. And that is what happened here. He fell into the gap in between intersectional feminism, which embraces all of the gender mafia, communist takeover of gay rights issues and all of the surrounding issues about sexuality and identity, and feminism that thinks masculinity is such a terrible disease that it cannot be cured by any means. And as long as people do not recognize those two separate branches and how much farther and farther apart they're becoming. And from my perspective, radical feminism is right-wing feminism, and intersectional feminism is left-wing feminism. And it's part of the reason why when trad wives sound like feminists, they usually sound like radical feminists. They don't usually sound like intersectional feminists. But as long as men think that they can navigate, they can't. They're going to get hurt. The other thing that happens between these two, between your radical and your intersectional feminists, is that they have been at war with each other for about 50 years. They hate each other like only women can hate each other. And if you ever grew up around women, if you had a sister, if you had female cousins, if you played with little girls in your neighborhood when you were a little boy, at some point in your life you were probably told, if you see two females fighting, you don't get in between them because you're going to die. This is the same thing. So if you try to navigate or negotiate between and negotiate the space between and the space where the fight is happening, you will get crushed. So the best thing that you can do is recognize that in the war between feminisms, both sides are wrong, and you're outside of that war. There is no way that there's no side you can ally with, there's no side that you can trust, there's no side that you can accept a little bit of and, say, well, now that I'm on your side, against them, you can see some of my points, because they won't do that, because they hate you, because you have masculinity disease, and therefore you're the bad guy, then they will actually ally with the other side against you, like they did here. So that's essentially what happened to him. And there's no getting around that. There's no way for men to get involved in a feminist issue on the side of feminism without putting themselves in the position that at some point this is going to happen to them.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. Does anybody else want to say anything about Grand Lindholm's situation? I'm sorry. I'm not going to say it right. What is it?
Are you doing that on purpose?
No. For some reason, I got Grand on the mind. I just want to say that. It's Graham. It's It's. Anybody want to say anything else about
Wasn't he technically released?
Lawrence Fox? Oh, released? I guess so. But I mean, what was he under arrest for?
His bail condition was he wasn't allowed to tweet.
Oh,
I think he got out of that eventually.
He was silenced.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll let you go. Just don't tweet anymore. Awesome. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're going to Land Lindholm.
Some Irish random.
Irish name. That's what I'm going to say. But
If I ever start a retail business, that's what I'm going to call it. Grand Lindholm.
yeah, Grand Lindholms. Nobody can afford houses anymore. Hi, Monique. What's up?
I just have a question.
Yo,
Because-
get up. Oh, come over here. Just come up to the table.
Okay. I'm just really curious because it seems like they are so like they eat up themselves, right? They eat up their own men that support them. Is there, because of social media and more information, I guess more awareness, do you think that there'll be a time when they've chewed up too many people and they've thrown a lot of their own people under the bus, especially men that may have some influence? I mean, it doesn't seem like they can keep attacking their own, and they're attacking each other. The cannibalism, like in their own squad. What would you think about that?
All right, thanks, Monique. Well, I mean, personally, I think that this ideology it is built on a constant spiral that's a purity spiral, right? So as they continue to compress and compress because there's like new things to get upset about, somebody fails the vibe check at some point, and then they get. Yeah, they will. Exactly. It's an unsustainable project. Like they're going to keep like compressing and compressing and shrinking. It's basically going to, destroy itself. All I'm saying is I think that when we cover these things, I'm trying to for my part, help people see it so they can just avoid that. Like that's what we need is to avoid these nut jobs, recognize them as nut jobs, look for the signs, septum piercing, danger hair, crazy opinions, bird hands, just look for the signs and then avoid them. And then you'll be safe because but the other thing too is that you have to stop concerning yourself with whether or not you are, saying something inappropriate. There is such a thing as sort of social norms of being polite. I'm not saying that we should just run through the hotel with our pants down, but or just yell curse words, just yell gamer words in the hotel. But when you're online and you're saying something, you shouldn't be constantly either guarding yourself from what you're going to say or how you normally communicate. And you shouldn't also be worried that other people might think you're a bad person. Right. So, and this is really hard because we've all been conditioned to feel like we have to signal to everyone that we're not bigots. Being a bigot is the worst thing in the world. It's worse than, committing crimes. I mean, there's that literally one of the stories we have is going to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. One of the stories we have on the show. And what we have to do is we have to be able to have the courage to say, I know who I am. And you don't get to tell me what that is, right? And I think it's the only way that that if people do it on a larger scale, it's the only thing that's gonna beat cancel culture too. Because cancel culture is built on the same premise where there's a bunch of people saying, we've all agreed that you can't be this way. And if somebody steps out of line, then we are going to correct that behavior. Usually it's done through like getting you in trouble with your school or your boss or whatever. But yeah, or maybe assassination. Yeah, like that might happen. But that's exactly right, because that is, like I said before, censorship is practicing assassination. And people, the ghouls online, I love that this word ghoul has just been getting used everywhere since the assassination. They've only been able to act this way because their opponents have been dehumanized to such an extent through these threat narratives, right? These are old practices, old tactics, and it's been so effective to do it to the point where when you hear someone died, you're relieved. You actually think that, Harry Potter defeated Khan or whatever the enemy is from the books, right? Well, like, defeated Palpatine. And because we don't care about those people because they're not human. And that's one of the reasons why have you noticed that a lot of these people are often referencing like pop culture things? Mm-hmm. Like they'll show you like, these characters from movies and cartoons and books that they've read, that they're already dehumanizing when they do that, because those are not based on reality. Right. Yeah, they're absolute caricatures. So anyway, somebody's correcting me. I know it's Voldemort.
Yeah, they only eat themselves from the top down, and they grow their base from the bottom up. Something we were talking about last night, how you'd think this movement would destroy itself because feminists and leftists, they're not breeding. They hate men. They hate the family unit. They want to destroy the family unit, and even when they do breed, they sterilize their children in the name of trans rights and all that. So you think, why wouldn't this movement shrink itself to death very quickly? It's because they're in charge of the education system. They're indoctrinating children. They don't need to breed because they get their converts from an early age, even as early as kindergarten. They get kids involved in this, and it works especially in teenage years because teenagers are already predisposed to rebel against their parents, and the teachers in the education system from the top to the bottom are teaching them to be feminist trans degenerates. So there's this endless supply. They can just steal other people's children, and then once they grow up, then they start eating each other. And they're going to keep doing this with every generation until they've killed everyone. The solution is to get them out of the education system. But that's going to be pretty difficult because we need to offer an alternative. Well, homeschool your kids, obviously, if it's even legal to homeschool your kids wherever you live. And yeah, some pushback needs to be made against this long, slow march through the institution. We need a long, slow march in the other direction through the institutions, and that could take several generations. So good luck, everyone.
We could start an online college, though. That's an option. But here.
I'm going to go back to Charlie. This is one of the reasons why he was so dangerous. Feminism had time for a long march through the institutions. We don't. And it's the next generations that are going to be the next set of institutions. And to understand why it's so hard for feminism and all other forms of collectivist, authoritarian, social micromanagement to eat themselves and disappear, you have to understand the incestuous relationship between the establishment and these ideologies, these victim identity politics, right? They use the establishment and the establishment uses them. Women didn't get the vote because women wanted the vote. Women got the vote because it served the needs of the establishment. Women will give up independence and their own boundaries and their family's boundaries and their neighbors' boundaries and their community's boundaries for Gibbs and safety and perceived safety, where they're not actually safe, but they feel safe. And there's a huge difference between feeling safe and being safe, right? You think about it this way: when you're a little kid and you're in your room in the dark and you're scared of the dark and there's a shadow on the wall and it doesn't look nice, it looks like a monster or something, it scares the crap out of you. But if you create an environment where your room is so pitch dark that you can't see any shadows, you might have a burglar in your room that you can't see. And you feel safe because you don't see that scary shadow on your wall. But are you? Right? And that's the difference between feeling safe and being safe. Feminists will give up everything that makes you safe. Your ability to defend yourself, your ability to think for yourself, your ability to choose where you're going to go, what you're going to do, how you're going to work, how you're going to live, for an authoritarian state that makes them feel protected, but can't get to their door for an hour after they call 911 when somebody's breaking in with a gun. So when you have this environment in which the state uses women's tendency to give that up to gain more and more authoritarian power, and then they use that authoritarian power to create systems of indoctrination and fear-mongering to make little girls feel like the most important thing they can do with their vote is give the state more power, you create a self-perpetuating machine. It's a Rube Goldberg device for growing more authoritarian feminism. And so no matter what, no matter how many men they break, no matter how many men they kill, no matter how many women get pissed off and leave, no matter how many men get pissed off and say, tell it to the bear, there will always be more feminism. There will always be more gynocentrism. There will always be more state power. And the only cure for this is a slow, short rush through the institutions. That the younger generations need to take over. The young men of the younger generations need to start running for local office, and then state office, and then federal office in short order, and setting things right. That's the only way to do this.
Hi, Prim.
Yay!
That's all
No.
right. You're fine. Well, I gotta move to the next story.
Yeah, and that was basically all I wanted to say, is men need to start getting involved in civics, because if not, women are going to destroy the world.
All right. Well, with that said, let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. We're going to move on to the next one. We have two more to get through, and I don't know if there's a time limit, but okay. So this week in Zoomer Women Are Cooked, we're going to be looking at a study that was recently released here. You're not going to be able to see it because it's where our little picture is kind of covering. I'm going to move this down so you guys can see this, because I think this is striking, but not surprising. So this was shared by Steve Kornacki on X, or Steve Kornacki. I am pronouncing that right. This is not me trying to say Grave Lynn Bucket or whatever his name is, but dated September 8th, 2025, and there was an NBC News Decision Desk poll focused on Gen Z men and women, aged 18 through 29, and their personal definitions of success, segmented by gender and political affiliation based on the most recent 2024 election in the United States. Although I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this data would reflect on Zoomer men and women in other parts of the world as well. And so they basically show what are the highest priorities that men and women have, Zoomers. And these are people that are getting into their 30s now. They're not kids, okay? These people are at the point now where they're thinking about the future and what they want out of their life. And you only get one, so this is important to think about. And if you look here, men who voted for Trump, so you could say right-wing men, their top three, let's just look at the top four, okay, or top five. So 34% having children, 33% financial independence, 30% fulfilling job or career, 29% being married, and 28% having money to do the things you want. So you look at, for the men, I'm just going to explain why this is why this is interesting, but not surprising to me anyway. So men want primarily a family, and they want to be married. And the job part, financial independence, fulfilling job, those only exist on that list in that order because it supports the other two things. Because a man inherently knows that if he doesn't have a job, if he doesn't have a job and financial independence, he's not getting married. and therefore he's not having kids, which is why kids are at the very top. And then after all that, he says, well, it'd be nice if I could have money to do the things I want after everything else. So I'm just looking at the top 5. I mean, the rest kind of like fall in line, and I think they seem pretty reasonable. Then we look at left-wing women who voted for Harris. Number 1, fulfilling job, career. Number 2, having money to do the things you want. Number 3, having emotional stability. That's not even on the list for the men for some reason.
At the bottom.
Oh, it's at the bottom, yeah. Number 4, using talents and resources to help others. And number 5, financial independence. So this shows that, at least to me, I mean, this says something pretty obvious, but men and women of this generation are at completely paradoxical priorities. Like their purposes are different. Now, there is also studies that show what men for Harris, like left-wing men and right-wing women want, but right-wing women are not the same as the right-wing men. They still are putting their jobs and everything else up higher on the list. So this isn't really a left-right thing, but this is just what the study shows, right? So we're looking at a situation where the thing that men want the most, women don't want to give them. And this is going to be a big problem because men are looking for women that want the same thing, right? And I don't know if Zoomer women are already saying, like, we're all the good men. I think they are. I think they're making videos from their cars, you know, with their septum rings. But but yeah, this is something that I thought was pretty shocking. Not really, but it might be shocking to the people watching. So the original post, I did want to make sure that the sources were real or like what was involved. There were, the study was big, 30,200 adults. So that's not a small poll. So that's worth looking at. That was like the main thing I want to say. So what do you guys think about this? And again, if you guys want to say something, that's cool. But first I'm going to give it, hold on. First I want to give it to Mike or Hannah to say something. So do you have something for this?
Yeah, there are things I don't trust about this survey, mostly because some of these options are loaded terms that in themselves imply success. Notice it's not just having a job, it's having a fulfilling job / career. The fact that it's fulfilling necessarily means it's successful, so it would be in your definition of success. It doesn't say having fulfilling children is just having children. I mean, you could have children, but you could inadvertently do a bad job of raising them. They could go on to become psychos who hate you and hurt everyone around them. Similarly, with regard to marriage, you'll notice it just says being married, not having a long and happy marriage. Being married does not necessarily mean success or even lead to it. Far from it, given how many of them end in divorce these days. How the hell so many men prioritize that, if anything, speaks to how short-sighted men are, or at least how naive they can be about how the family courts work. What's also quite telling is that men's lowest priority is having emotional stability. I think that's probably because men don't worry about that sort of thing, because they generally are emotionally stable, probably because they're blissfully unaware of how much women hate them and will readily ruin their lives. Whereas for women, emotional stability is their third priority because they don't have it. And to them, it's like gold dust. It's like winning the lottery. They've never known emotional stability because they've been taught to be constantly terrified about men raping them or stabbing them on a bus or something, which is another story we might get around to soon. It reminds me of that historical exchange between an Englishman and a Frenchman. The Englishman says, you French fight for money, us English fight for honor. And the Frenchman responds, yes, we fight for that which we lack the most. Sick burn, Frenchman, I will give you that. I will give you that. Like, these aren't necessarily the things that men and women aspire to as a field of excellence. They're the things they're most worried about never being able to achieve. It's extremely easy for women to have children and retain custody of them, whereas it's extremely difficult for men. Whereas using talents and resources to help others is a low priority for men because they're basically already obliged to do that. They're like, I'm already doing that. It's my job to do that. If at any point I stop doing that, I won't be able to achieve any of the other things on this list. Whereas women are more concerned with having money to do the things you want. I mean, do I even need to explain that? Women don't aspire to provide, they aspire to deserve. This is where I make the obligatory recommendation of Homath's latest video. I think it's called... Oh, yeah. which they'll never get from the state. But yeah, this survey really isn't telling us what it looks like it's telling us, in my opinion. Like so many of these questionnaires, it's not really diving deep into people's psyches. It's just scratching the surface of what people think they should be saying, which is at all times tempered by what people have been taught to think by a corrupt system of shallow gender studies slop, wherein men give everything and women receive everything. I wouldn't take it too seriously if I were you, especially given that it was conducted by NBC. I mean, are we really expecting such shysters to be asking the right questions, let alone collating the right answers? In short, opinion discarded, fuck bitches, get money, and so on and so forth. The prophet has spoken. I'm not a real prophet. None of this is soothsaying advice.
I think one of the first things that struck me is the difference between how men and women look at work and money. You're looking at the causes of the wage gap right there, right? Where women put having a fulfilling job or career and having money to do things they want well above financial independence. Well, if you don't want financial independence as much as you want to have money to do things that you want, that means that you're willing to use other people's money to do things you want. And if you don't want to have money to do things you want as much as you want a fulfilling job or career, that means you're willing to take a job that you like instead of a job that pays you well, and then rely on other people's money to supplement your lifestyle, which is pretty much feminine economics in a nutshell. That is, to be fair, Homath. My money and his money are my money. His money is our money, and or maybe even just my money. And that's the way that women live. And then the result of that is that women go through life financially unprepared, and they expect men to work harder and longer and uglier, more dangerously, more painful to make up for it. And putting being married and having children at the bottom of the list, being able to retire early at the bottom of the list. Well, a lot of women don't retire because they don't get jobs. They stay home. So you don't retire from that. Your kids grow up and they move out, and you're an empty nester. So why would they care about that? And they don't care about him retiring early because they want that money to do things they want, but they don't want financial independence as much. So therefore, he can't retire early either. This is why we have such a high divorce rate in the United States. It's why we have such a high rate of credit card debt, where if you look at men's higher debt habits, it's usually for things like, I have to have a car that's reliable to get to work. I'm going to go into debt to have this car, and I'll pay for it. I'm going to get a mortgage to house my family. I'm going to take out a business loan to start this company. Women, it's, I'm going to buy new shoes and a set of curtains that don't fit the windows in my house. And so that debt doesn't get paid off always, and it wrecks their credit, and then they rely on men more. It's also why we really need to go back to a dowry system, even in the West. I worked for 10 years before I got married. And if my parents had been of a wise mindset with regard to my responsibility toward my husband and my future family, they would have ordered me, because for part of that time I was underage, to sock that away somewhere instead of spending it on movies and shoes and dresses and snacks and crap. Books. A lot of it went to books. Most of it went to books. But, I would have had a nest egg. We would have been able to put a down payment on a house life would have been a hell of a lot easier. And since girls don't usually pay for dates, since girls don't usually have to be the one financially supporting the relationship, and a lot of them do plan on becoming stay-at-home moms that don't have a job and don't bring home any of the bacon, they just cook it. The wise thing is, if you use the interim between when you start working and when you tie the knot to put away a savings and contribute to the start of your family's financial stability as a woman, you are building something that will serve your family for the rest of your life. And then you won't have so much of a worry about financial stability, having money to do things you want, and whether or not financial independence is related to that, because you've created a foundation on which what you're asking your man to do will be more stable. And you'll be taking some of the burden off of him. And you might get to keep him longer. And which, you know, if you're getting married, that means you really like him, you want him around. That's a good thing. But we don't tell women that. And when we bring it up, like you say that on X, you get flooded with women accusing you of misogyny. How dare you suggest women should have to pay to get married? That's not the suggestion. Maybe women should have to pay to get married, but the suggestion is maybe women make their contribution in bulk at the beginning so that they can do the other things they want to do without being a deadbeat. And, you know.
You're judging women.
Yes.
Out loud.
I have called myself a deadbeat right here and now. I am judging a woman. This one. This one fucked up her family's beginning and paid for it with years and years of having 2 and 3 jobs trying to make up for it, right? I had a baby out of wedlock. Wedlock was coming, but putting the cart before the horse is not healthy for anybody involved. It made things harder for me, it made things harder for my husband, it made things harder for my children. So when I talk about this, I'm talking about it from a place of regret. I wish I had done better by everyone I love. Because if I had, there'd been a lot of things that happened over the last 25, 26, 27 years. I'm getting old. The last 27 years that I wouldn't have cried over. They wouldn't have happened. And I've had a lot of sweat and tears as a result of that. And that's not as bad as the sweat and tears that I saw my husband go through. I'd rather have had double and spared him that. And I don't want other women to go through that. I don't want other husbands to go through that. I don't want other people's kids to go through that. So when I talk about this, I'm telling you because I want people to have an easier life. And that's a pathway to an easier life. And this difference in goals, it may be pathological, it may not be pathological, but it exists, it's real, it's there, and it guides how people live their lives. And one of the best ways to handle knowing that information is to approach it in terms of what can we do to mitigate the consequences. And a dowry system, encouraging young women to sock away savings while they're working before they get married is one method that would be highly effective.
Let's go, dowry. Let's bring it back. Okay. Take the gold pill, guys. All right. I got before I move on to the next story, I got a super chat, and I'm going to ask for audience participation because it's from Master Rogue. If you guys know Master Rogue, he only tweets or super chats one thing. So Master Rogue gives us $2 and says, we're going to say prim together, okay? He gives us $2 and says, prim! Okay. She says hello. All right. Prim did. She just said hello back. That's what I'm saying.
I'm just narrating.
Oh, you're narrating. Okay. All right. So thank you, Master Rogue. Let me just check Super Chows really quick. Nothing's come through. Send a Super Chow if you guys have a comment on the story. I did get one. That's feedthebadger.com/just the tip to send us a message anytime during the show. So let us move on to the last story. This one, I think, ties in with the others. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was asking the audience if they wanted to say anything. So we're going to, let's take a statement. Here you go.
Yeah,
This
if you
is, escargot. Right?
exactly the froggy escargot. If you can just put the data, déjà vu French escargot. Can you put back the data, the numbers?
What about put them back up.
Yeah,
Hold on.
because there's the first thing that I noticed actually. Women who voted for Harris, having money to do things they want, almost half. Financial independence, a third. No debt, a fifth. So how do they get the money to do what they want? It's someone else's money. Being married, 1 in 20. So either it's a given or they get someone else's money without being married by force, by state. I think that's just how we should look. It's fascism.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Everything through the state, by the state, nothing out of the state. That's not very constructive, but at least we see the red flag.
All right. Thank you. And did you want to? Yeah, go ahead. Here you go.
Thank you. Okay, so this has been doing the rounds, this table that we're all seeing, obviously, but a lot of people have not quite been understanding it because it's been taken a little out of context. But what NBC did was they handed all of these people this complete list of 13 things, and then they said, pick the top 3 that are the most important to your personal definition of success. And so what this table is showing is that 34% of men who voted for Trump put having children in their top 3. So that was one of the most popular. And 33% of those men said financial independence, and so on and so forth. So this is a ranking of the people who thought these were in the top 3. So it's a bit of an odd table. Like if someone says being able to retire early is not in my top 3, well, okay, but it might be your 4th most important thing. There might be a very narrow definition, a narrow separation between that and having children, even though it's only 9%. So this is not 9% of men
It's
thinks.
not a ranking.
It's not the case that only 6% of women who voted for Harris think having children is important. It's, yes, there's a difference in values, but it's not as extreme as some people have been led to believe. And it's also kind of a weird way to ask the question, or maybe to display it. I'm not sure. It's just maybe it was calculated to cause a lot of controversy and not communicate very clearly. And NBC knew what they were doing, and they knew people would misunderstand and misinterpret, or maybe they're just incompetent. In other news, you do not hate journalists enough. Thank you.
Yeah. Allison, you wanted to say something? Allison, you got to get up. I don't know. Would it reach you?
Here.
Her arms are pretty long.
Okay, I just have a logistical question. Do you mind if we piggyback the response to adolescents onto you guys?
What? What are you talking about?
Well, on your stream, can we hijack your stream?
But do you want to just stay?
Yeah,
live
just
then?
stay. No, you could do the intermission, then we can change it and then
Okay.
continue.
So are you asking me to stop the show?
No,
Okay, I have one more story.
you have one. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. The other thing I wanted to say too, though, there's one more other thing I thought about as we were like talking about this list. I think one of the reasons too to consider why so few women would find being married, having children, and like those things, like they would find those to be in their top 3, probably because maybe they don't think that they have to worry about them. Like maybe they think that they're gonna get married, it's a given. I got men waiting in my DMs. I got this. And so it's not like something they have to put a lot of like mental energy into being worried about, because it's probably a given, right?
Delusion. I think
I got something to say to that.
It's delusion, but I'm just saying maybe this is why they're not ranking it that high.
Or they figure they're never going to get married anyway.
Or they're like living the call her daddy like era of like just doing whatever you want, right?
Well, not even calling daddy and like just being alone because that's all you got.
Yeah.
So the other aspect of that is that it may be that women answered this on the basis of what was their top 3 right now, and
Yeah.
starting with the boomer generation. So all of us in here that are Gen Xers, we got to hear this. The millennials got the same thing shoved down their throats. One of the mantras of the sexual revolution was have your fun now and you can settle down later, right? And so women feel entitled to party, enjoy themselves, focus on everything except the future that they want with a family for so many years, and then expect that later, when they're ready for that to be in their top 3, they'll have an easy time making it happen, just the same as they would if they had started when men start planning for it. And this is another reason why we need to go back to a dowry system, right? I think I've said this on the show before too. Love your children before you have them. Love your children before you conceive them. Start building their circumstances for their childhood and how you're going to raise them before you bring children into the world, or don't have children. And again, before anybody's like, misogyny, I'm judging myself. So, I got one finger pointed out at the women of the world and 3 pointed back at me, because that's my big mistake. Was the child wasn't a mistake, but the failure to get ready was huge mistake. And that's what connected to it. Being raised in an environment where we're told that you can put off preparing, you can just wing it. Parenthood is easy. It's the hardest job in the world being a mother, but it's so easy that you don't have to think about it till after you've conceived the baby. Which one of these things has to be true,
It's the hardest job in the world, but you can't fuck it up.
Right, you can't make a mistake, you can't be wrong, you can't damage your child, you can't.
But you can't be, nobody acknowledges
Yeah.
that it can be fucked up.
Yeah, you can't do anything wrong, which means you don't have to try to do anything right. So why would it be high on their priority list when they're still young? Because you don't have to think about it until after, you're in that situation and scrambling. How am I going to feed this kid? How am I going to make sure that he or she has everything? Am I doing this right? Am I saying and teaching the right things? Am I demonstrating the right things? What's going to happen when junior hits junior high, and since I'm letting him be online unsupervised, he finds mommy's, what's that stupid site called? OnlyFans page, from 10 years ago. And women don't think about these things when they're 18, 19, 20, 25. They don't think about it till they're 30, and nobody wants to date them because their body count is higher than their age, and their debt is higher than all of the ages of their whole community put together, and their degree got them a job at Starbucks.
Their body count's higher than their credit score.
Yeah. Yep, some are.
That's better. I like that. That's good. All right.
That's a new judgment.
So, yeah, that stings. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Oh, final chance for anybody to say anything about it. No, Allison, you talk too much. Somebody else.
She talks too much.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to say this. That explains the Mormon dating show.
Oh, the Mormon dating show. Yeah. All right. Okay, anyway, move on to the next story. This one should ruffle some feathers. So this is, remember when I was talking before about how something women are like kind of, the idea of being a bigot is like so repulsive that we'd just like destroy ourselves to not be called one. So 100 UK women's rights organizations, including Rape Crisis England and Wales, Refuge, and Southall Black Sisters, issued open letters. Let me put this on the screen so you guys can see this. It's just the image. Issued open letters condemning far-right efforts to link immigration, particularly asylum seekers, with sexual violence against women and girls. They labeled these claims racist lies, arguing that they exploit gender-based violence to fuel anti-migrant hate, citing cases like protests in Epping, Essex, after an asylum seeker's alleged assault. The groups emphasize that sexual violence is a widespread societal issue, with over 90% of cases involving known perpetrators, not strangers or specific ethnic groups, and that scapegoating migrants distracts from addressing systemic male violence while endangering marginalized women, including refugees. Notice, I just want to say this because I know someone else is going to bring it up. When you get into this situation where you see there are male offenders and maybe female ones from foreign, they're like migrants, they're illegals, whatever. What feminists do because of intersectionality is they pivot to all men instead of like saying, well, maybe we could address this issue. And this makes it to where that can keep happening without them actually having to talk about the issue itself, because the last thing they want is to be called racist. Far-right figures like Nigel Farage and Robert Jenrick fueled the controversy, with Farage claiming Afghan males are disproportionately convicted of rape and Jenrick alleging 40% of London's sexual crimes involve foreign nationals. Though these claims were criticized for relying on flawed data, a follow-up letter, Women Against the Far Right, signed by over 200 prominent figures on September 2nd, 2025, rejected these narratives as divisive and urged focus on real solutions. Critics I don't think they have any. Critics like Tory MP Alicia Kearns argued that ignoring migrant-related crimes risks women's safety, but the women's group stressed that such rhetoric perpetuates harmful myths, silences survivors, and undermines justice for all victims. So, I'm going to do my panelists first. So, Mike, do you have anything to say about this? I mean, you're from there. You might know something.
In theory, yeah. You'd think I'd have more to say about this, but I've already covered it most. Incidentally, there's 1 million people marching in London today.
Yes, they are.
Specifically against immigration. And that's a start, but this story is sort of an indication that we need another 1 million people marching for the cause of our immigration problems, and it's sort of outlined there. We gave women the vote, and eventually,
let's go. LFGs in the chat.
They started voting not just for their own gimmies, but to give gimmies to everyone in the world except English men, and to place everyone in the pyramid above English men. So this time next year, Tommy, I know you're not interested in this, but we need a 1 million men march.
Yes.
Because the immigration problem is only a symptom. It's only the leaves of the poison ivy. We need to sort out the problem of the seeds, which are and always have been feminism. Well, women. Let's just get rid of the women. Never mind the vote. Shall we just slaughter all the... I'll stop talking.
No, let's not do that. We still need them, sort of.
Oh, boy. So a large part of this issue is the culture clash between women, right? You have women of one culture that consider being entitled to a sexual display to be a virtue, being entitled to not only put on a sexual display, but expect that nobody will react to it as a sexual display unless they want. That's a virtue. Your status is higher if you can demand that only the people you want notice that you've stuck your tits out and it's not for equality, right? And then the other culture, reserving yourself sexually is a virtue. And so women who don't do that are scum, and therefore anything is fair to do to them. And women are the ones that raise the boys. So when you have these two cultures shoved in together by the elites, where they're told, here you go, get along. We're not going to provide you with any support or guidance or anything like that. You have the women of the conservative culture saying, well, those women are scum. You can do anything to them that you want, and we don't care. And actually, we're going to get mad if you don't. And you have, that tendency in both cultures. Men want to please their women. And if that means mistreating the women of the other culture, then that's on the table. It's not necessarily because they're naturally predatory, rapey bastards that just want to run around and take advantage of someone. There are other cultural things that are influencing this. And at the same time, women's pathological politeness. I can exclude myself from this because I'm not polite. I'm too far in the other direction sometimes, right? But women will offer a burglar that's broken into their house a glass of water to make sure he's comfortable because they don't want to seem like a bad hostess, right? And they'll especially do that if he's burglarizing their neighbors and not them. They're okay, they're safe, you know. By the way, don't park there. The cops will ticket you. Just, you know, want to get out of the neighborhood fast, park over there. And it's something that results in tolerance for any kind of behavior like I just described, where their outgroup treats them as an outgroup and mistreats their whole group. They allow it. They don't care because it's not happening to them directly. And you do get a rise in violent crime and conflicts, misunderstandings, lawsuits, cancellations on social media sites, and little girls running around with axes and knives trying to defend themselves because you know, some chick started a fight with them or their mother or their sister and then got her man involved, and then he gets into trouble and the kids get into trouble, and the lady that started the whole thing walks away completely unscathed because she's female and they can't hold her accountable. Then feminists come along and like to say 99% of rapists are men and this is just a man thing and men do. But when you look at the statistics, right, even if it was true, which it's not, that 99% of rapists were men, what percentage of men are rapists? So I had Grok do a calculation on this a while back. What percent of the population, the general adult male population, is represented by crime statistics? What percent of adult males in just the United States are perpetrators? And it is a fraction of 1%. So if 99% of a group, that is a fraction of 1% of the overall general adult male population. And I used as the age, you can be charged as an adult, so 15 and up, right? Then is that really typical of that general population? Or is it that whatever causes human beings to go wrong, so wrong that they commit violent crimes, hits men more often than women, right? And so when feminists turn around and try to use that as a characterization of men, well, if 99+% of the people who do not commit violent crimes are men, then why is that not considered a characteristic? It's a very poignant question. And when you turn it around on them, they get mad. So all around in this issue, it is, again, an in-group, out-group, false framing, feminist complaint, exploitation of your inability to notice how they're framing things kind of an issue. Yes, these things are happening, and yes, there is a racial component to it. Yes, there is a cultural component to it. No, it's not characteristic of the race or the culture. There are other causes, but we can't talk about it until we can acknowledge all of the things that are involved in the false framing and all of the things that are true. And we can't do that as long as we suffer from women's pathological politeness.
All right. Who's next? You want to go? All right. Here we go. Here is Latrine.
I don't know what that means, so repeat.
It sounded French to me.
No, this is speaking to... You will explain that later.
Yeah.
There's a movie you have to watch.
Yeah, it was thank you. Top secret.
Yeah.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember
He
that
meets
one.
a bunch of like French resistance guys, and they all have these funny names.
Latrine is the one that always comes back injured.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that corresponds to what I do. This is speaking directly to something that is happening in France with women's group fighting the immigrants. It's Nemesis Collective, and guess what? Their first opponent, physical opponent, is other women. So if women in England or in other countries want to start fighting against other cultures raping them, you will face other women, you will face your own kind fighting you. That's normal. When you wake up, you are surrounded by people who are sound asleep and who won't like you waking up from their sweet dreams. But you will also find a lot of people ready to help you. That was just for saying that.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, yeah. Yes? Okay. Great indoors. Go ahead.
Well, of course, the reason why 99% of men are not rapists is because feminists have been very successful in their campaign of teaching men not to rape.
All right, Allison, you can come now.
So successful, the effect was retroactive.
All right, Allison wants to say something again. Uh-oh. Fix that.
Oh, what are you doing? You're dismantling
Why did I move backwards instead of forwards? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
I don't know if this is right or wrong. Okay, it's good.
I want to sit down. Oh, I feel gross. All right. You're fine.
You gonna be here long?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man. See that?
Aaron. Okay, just a sec. This will take a little bit of time. There we go. Okay. Okay, sit down, please.
Mess with the tripod.
Now we're safe.
Okay.
Now we're safe. Okay. I gotta get my thoughts back in order. All right. So this is okay. To Romeric's point, think about how many political issues come down to two groups of women fighting. Just imagine the trans issue. Two groups of women fighting, and not just even trans women. It's liberal women, liberal feminists versus TERFs. The immigration issue, two groups of women fighting. Abortion, two groups of women fighting. Like most of the, I can't even think of one issue that isn't two groups of women fighting over it, and then both groups of women blaming men for the other women's positions. So to use the abortion one, the pro-abortion people say it's conservative men wanting to keep women pregnant and barefoot, and the pro-life women say that it's liberal, and I've seen ads where they refer to this, that it is liberal men who just want to exploit women's sexuality without any kind of responsibility. And it's like, no, this is not a dialogue that really. What we need to do is we need to create a gigantic Thunderdome, right? And we need to dress these women up in like leather and studs and say, okay, you guys go in, and one point of view comes out, and that's the point of view that we'll use.
Two
right?
cons enter. Two cons leads.
Sorry?
Handmaid's Tale outfits. Ketchup bottle outfits.
Yeah.
Well, you can make those out of
You
leather.
can bring back
You just
glow.
have to dye the leather.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. I was just thinking of Mad Max Handmaiden crossover outfits. That would be definitely interesting. But yeah, so it's like this is, and these things never get resolved because the women do not seem to have a way of debating them and concluding the concept. So they come in, they set up these camps. They use men as scapegoats and also foot soldiers for each of these political positions, and they never get resolved because the women won't come together and say, okay, let us hash this out logically, rationally. And nobody calls them out on it. Says, no, go into the Thunderdome. Go hash this out in whatever way you need to do it. But find a solution that doesn't involve blaming men or expecting men to go kill themselves over it. right? And it's like, and then you just see that when you see it, you see it. All the balkanized and the two camps, and votes for women was the same thing too. Two camps of women. The much larger camp was like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then there was a smaller camp that was like, do it, faggot, do it. And then, you know, the one that was supported by the Rockefellers won.
They had more money.
Yeah, they had more money. But yeah, so it's you look back through history, prohibition, everything. It's like two camps of women. You go back far enough, it's probably tribal conflicts. Two groups of women. It's like, she stole my goat, you know. Yeah. And which is really actually sort of what the Christian narrative was about. Is about, you know, don't send your sons to go die over your goat. You know, that kind of thing. And then suddenly an empire, or suddenly a stable civilization. But anyway, I'm getting into the weeds. But yeah, this is sort of the same thing, and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. I got into arguments with people, and I said, I remember it was with Andrew Wilson. We got into this huge Twitter spat. I wasn't with Twitter spatting with Andrew Wilson, but it was the girl with the axe and the machete, or whatever. Or I think it was just an axe.
An axe and a dagger.
An axe and a dagger.
Knife. Yeah.
Now, the full story that I've managed to piece together is that they were approached by a man, and he was harassing them, but not doing anything to them, like not physically, or at least, or following him perhaps. And then they confronted him. His wife or girlfriend came out and attacked one of the girls, and then she defended herself. And this has gone from a situation where potentially one woman attacks another woman into somehow men are all to blame, and specifically British men or Scottish men for not protecting this girl from being attacked by another woman. And the woman who initiated the violence just disappears into the smoke from the entire narrative. Like, she's gone, right? And I actually pointed out, well, what do you expect these UK men to do to Fatima? Like, what do you expect? You know, the instant they touch her, they're in jail for 20 years on a hate crime. You know, and it's like, this entire problem is intractable because, again, it's two camps of women, each blaming men, and each, what is there?
Nothing, just finish
Each blaming men, and each wanting to use men as their foot soldiers. And as a result, there's a bunch of women's organizations in the UK who were saying that British men who call out migrant men's sex crimes are themselves sex offenders who are trying to hide their own crimes. And so you got one side, women are saying, you're cowards, you're allowing these foreign men to rape your daughters. And the other side is, if you bring this stuff up, you are a sex offender who's hiding your own offenses, and also if you bring it up, you're going to jail. And it's like, well, what are men, like, how, this is not a functioning society. And it's because the women will not, first step, look across the aisle, you know, wipe your glasses, look across the aisle, and tell me if that's a man or a woman on the other side of your argument. And if it's a woman, stop blaming men. Right? If it's a woman sending the men out and blaming the men of your side, stop blaming men. There you go. Then we can start to get somewhere. And I think this is honestly, and I'm not against the 19th Amendment. I have reservations. But I could see why many societies said we got to keep women out of direct politics, because you can't keep them out of politics. They get in, they're in your politics.
Their bird hands in.
Yeah. just keep them out directly, because this is what happens. Balkanization, they set up, they blame men, they send men, and the society breaks down into threat narratives. Okay, all right, yeah.
So that was,
one last thing. It's not just migrant men. It's also migrant women. At least 25% of the sexual violence is done by migrant women. 25%, and this is a least. This is the floor. 25 is done against British boys. Most migrant men are just trying to get by. in a society that probably makes absolutely no sense to them. And they're still just putting their nose to the grindstone and doing the work. So I just wanted to point those two things out and give it back to you.
I want to bounce off of that just one little bit. The reason that it's always two groups of women fighting with each other by throwing men as ammunition is because they don't think of their own agency. Women will vote a warmonger in as the leader of their nation, and then they'll be absolutely shocked when a war starts. How did this happen? And it's obviously masculinity that caused it. Women will marry a guy or just get pregnant by a guy that has no job, has no prospects, dresses like a scumbag, and treats everyone around him like shit. Is it just an absolute dipshit? And they'll be just absolutely shocked when he doesn't step up to the plate and become a good father and marry them and raise the child with them. They don't consider the fact that they chose badly. They don't consider the fact that this is a consequence of their choices. And they don't consider the fact that what the other side is doing has consequences that are a result of women's choices. They can't blame other women because they would have to accept that they're responsible for their choices. And as long as society allows that, nobody calls them out. No men say, hey, we didn't vote in that warmonger, you did, because you wanted to be able to have abortions. And he promised to protect those. We didn't marry the dipshit. It takes two groups of people. It takes men refusing to tolerate that, and it takes the few women that have woken up and understand that if you make a stupid choice, if you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, to call out the other women. And you can be polite about it, or you can be like me and tell some girl on the internet that the reason she's unhappy about her divorce is because you can't turn a dipshit into a diamond by polishing his knob. And get cussed at for 3 days afterwards for saying it. But one way or another, you got to get that into other women's heads, or this will never end. Yeah. There's no other cure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. And that is all of our stories. I think, what's the next thing going on?
We'll do the adolescents.
Are we taking a break, or is it starting at 3?
Well, we got 10 minutes for a break. Yes. We just put up the sign.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm about to. I'm just trying to figure out like how much time I have to work with, because I'd like to know. I'd like to I'd like to get a coffee because I feel like I'm.
Yeah, coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee.
All right, so we're gonna take a coffee break, and for those of you who are patrons, you'll be able to keep watching. We've been streaming all morning.
Well, no, we could continue to stream this too.
You want to stream this live?
Yeah.
The adolescence thing.
Yeah.
Are you sure we're not gonna get dinged for that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Are we gonna watch it?
Well, not the whole thing, but it's like an edited. It's like a compilation.
They will definitely.
Continuous no editing because of how the show.
Because of the way the show is shot.
Yeah, they'll copyright things.
Yeah, so this is gonna go unlisted. Although we had record numbers. We had like 130 people watching the news show
On YouTube.
on YouTube.
Yeah, because it's even more on Twitter then.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. So I don't know why that is, but good you guys were here.
Yeah.
But okay, so we're gonna take a 10-minute break, and then if you guys are followers, if you're
Are we closing this off live?
Yes.
And then okay.
So we're gonna close this off live.
Feedthebadger.com.
Feedthebadger.com. What?
/JustTheTip.
Yeah, just the tip to send us a message or a comment during any time, and we'll be sure to read it on the next relevant show. I know that already. I don't know what. I thought she was telling me something different. But anyway, thanks guys for coming on today's news show. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and we'll see you guys in the next one. See you guys later.
Men rights advocates are machines.
Dude.
Men's rights activists are machines. dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.